This is a very special edition of the CX Files. Now, as everybody knows, our episodes usually come out on Thursdays. But we're making a bit of an exception today. Over the course of the past several weeks, the CX industry has been besotted by several different outsourcer consolidation moves. We saw one most recently with Teleperformance and Majorel announcing an intention to effectively come together as one mega player. That came in the wake of Concentrix and Webhelp making reference to the same type of an arrangement. Now, just to give some context as well, in terms of how this discussion seems to be permeating the customer experience professional sector, I published a blog about a week ago about 5 things to watch for the mega consolidation trend, what we should be looking out for. And within 24 hours, that blog had set a new record for page views, which tells me that this is not a hype cycle. This is something that people are acutely interested in. And quite frankly, I think a lot of people have some concerns about. So, in order to help dissect this trend of mega consolidation in the CX BPO space, I've assembled an all-star cast of industry influencers, watchers, veterans, individuals who have opinions on literally everything when it comes to the customer experience space, and they join us from various parts of the world. On my side of the pond, I'm very delighted to welcome Ann Bibb, who joins us from her home in Dallas. Ann, great to have you here.
Ann Bibb, I'm with the Remote Evolution, CEO of Remote Evolution. We help organizations to grow remotely and geographically across the globe and have done so with many of the organizations that we'll be talking about today.
Super, thanks, Ann. We've got Lian Rowlands from Tayma Solutions, who's usually in the Bristol area, but today you're in Motherwell, I believe.
I am. I'm up at a census in Motherwell. So I've actually got I've got really good connectivity here today. So yeah, looking forward to this conversation as well, because to your point, Peter, it's something that everyone's been talking about in all the circles that I've been having conversations in.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Lian. And last but certainly not least, a longtime friend of the CX Files and of myself, Mr. Rod Jones, who joins us from his home in Johannesburg, where, Rod, I believe that you're facing a bit of a power issue right now.
Yes, hi, Peter and Deanne and Anne. Nice to be on the show with you. Yes, we have this thing called load shedding, which means we are without power for today. It'll be a total of 11 hours today in 4.5 hour blocks. So we're totally reliant on batteries, inverters, laptops, and it's all quite fun. So good to be with you, and we'll keep the home fires burning because that's the only way we keep warm.
I was going to say, you literally might not have a choice because you are coming into winter right now in SA. So to tee up our discussion today, I would like to ask everybody, starting with you, Lian, what was your initial reaction when you heard about these mega deals that have been announced over the course of the past 5 to 6 weeks?
Initial reaction was surprised but not surprised. I think it's been something that we've all felt is kind of coming. There's been lots of people circling around different organizations. We've seen how difficult it's been for some of the smaller BPOs recently. And we've seen, some of the smaller BPOs kind of go into liquidation, and seeing these bigger organizations kind of choose now to, I guess, consolidate their position. We know it's a tough market out there. We know it's a really tough market for everybody. And this idea of growth through acquisition at scale, I think quite a few of us have sort of sensed it was happening. I think for me, I was quite surprised that we saw two big deals so quickly, in such fast succession. That felt like it was everybody's going at once. But I don't think it was total surprise on behalf of most people.
Okay. And what about you? What were your initial gut reactions when you heard about these deals?
I have to agree with Lian, because I think after the Sykes-Sitel merger last year, I was waiting for the next one to see what was going to come up. And I was expecting something to come up this year. And so when the Concentrix Web Help came up, I thought, okay, this is the big one for this year. I was a little bit surprised at the next one that they, to Lian's point, that they happen so quickly. But I think that there is this larger feel that the consolidation and pulling all of the the overall omni-channel experiences and the customer centricity of the business world together for the digital transformation, and just kind of pulling everything together and giving themselves more of an edge is what's driving a lot of this. So a surprise, but not a surprise. The surprise being that they happen so quickly back to back, but not so much that they're happening.
Rod, what was the reaction for yourself as well as for the CX ecosystem in South Africa, which I think we can all agree has become one of the most important and one of the biggest offshore destinations anywhere in the world, that's supporting some of these companies that have been involved in these mergers?
Peter, likewise, I wasn't surprised, largely because over the last 12 months or more, I have engaged with the said mega players, or several of them, who've been sniffing around in our territory. And so I did get wind of this thing fairly early on. So it wasn't a big surprise, but I think the larger industry out here was taken aback by the two big mergers, if you like to call it that. But I've got some other views about the longer term implications of that. But the bottom line is, no, I wasn't surprised, but then forewarned is forearmed.
Okay, and let's stick with you for a second, Rod, because I'm curious to know, as somebody who's been around our space for, I wouldn't be wrong to say 4 decades now. You've seen everything happen. You've seen everything happen in the CX space. What's
Rod,
driving these mega deals?
Well, my take on the mega deals and what may well be the drivers, and I said I have been engaging with some of them, is, and if we look at the mega operators, thin margins, economies of scale drive it. So acquisition is a way to get those scales even further up the ladder. I think also that clambering for tech, for the new tech, whether it is in the chat GPT space or the automation or the virtual agents, etc. I think a lot of it is driven by that, looking for competitive advantage, cost reduction through economies of scale. That's my take on it.
Well, that's interesting. And, Anne, this is something I'm really curious to get your thoughts on. And let me explain my thought process here before I ask the question. The chatter I'm hearing from many industry watchers is that, to Rod's point, there's real opportunities around technology, and there's a real possibility around innovation from these types of fusions. But more people than ever are saying that this is actually, in their view, going to limit innovation. It's going to limit the extent to which companies are going to invest. And they're really just going for large volumes of workstations with mega companies, mega clients. Where do you fall into this argument?
See, this is where I struggle, because I could really argue this both ways. I'm seeing two sides of this. One, yes, they are looking for more seats. They're looking for more languages. They're looking to conquer the globe, for lack of a better way to put it, right? However, there really is a risk that these mega deals are going to stifle innovation and competition, particularly because the market's going to become dominated just by a few large players. When we look at it, as more of these happen, it's just going to limit choices. But when it comes to innovation, one of the things that I'm seeing is that not only are these mega deals happening, the larger players are looking to buy innovation, right? They're buying a Logic Digital. They're buying AI. They're not only doing innovation in-house, because some of them are. They've got some great things going on, but they're also buying innovation, which is also impacting things in the long run, because they're investing in advanced technology, they're investing in R&D, and there's just the risk in that consolidation that's going to lead to the lack of innovation and diversity in the CX BPO industry.
Okay, so let's think about this from the standpoint of any type of a merger and acquisition. From the anytime there's a consolidation activity that goes on, I'm going back to my days in my MBA. I'm pretty scared to think about how long ago that was, but one of the things that we did learn was when there is an acquisition, there's got to be some type of an outcome for both parties, for the buyer, for the company that's being acquired, et cetera. So, Lian, what do you see as the key outcomes? What are the acquiring firms in these deals expecting to get out of these deals, broadly speaking?
I think Anne's covered quite a bit of it, because I think when you're in an acquiring position, you're acquiring growth. I mean, this is growth through acquisition, right? This is the knowledge that there are only so many mega deals out there. There are only so many mega deals on the table. And I think when you start looking at the big players who have, because let's face it, none of these big players have merged with a small specialist, right? They have gone in big time with somebody of equal-ish standing, whether it be size or scale. So I think this is very much just that it's an acquisition play for scale. Because as I said at the start, it's tough out there, right? And if everybody's fighting over the same, 2,000 seat deal that's in the same geographies, then it gets very expensive. It gets very messy. So if you can take a piece off the chessboard, and at the same time you've taken a significant piece off the chessboard in a way that they are happy with, you've then expanded into whatever their geographies are, because that's part of the nature of what they're doing. So you stretch your geographical reach, you stretch your technological reach, as Anne was saying. So you enhance your technology. I think you basically create something that is at least in the short term a significant win. Now you've still got to make that business work, and you've still got to find a way to remain agile and remain responsive to clients. And I think that's a really big challenge, by the way, which is how do you remain agile and responsive when you have clients who are culturally aligned potentially to one business, who now find themselves in an environment with a different business that maybe they don't know or they're not keen on working with. So that is a challenge for them. But the reality is when these large mega deals come on the table now, these big players will be able, to coin the Hollywood phrase, it'll be everything everywhere all at once. Can you do it? Yeah. Where can you do it? Anywhere you like. What can you do? Whatever you want. It's that ability to wrap your arms around these giant deals. What I do think is going to be quite interesting is how that then plays out to smaller contracts and smaller clients that sit in these businesses who do not want to be the tiny fish in the big pond and who wonder where all their attention's gone. I think that's a big challenge.
So that's really leading me to the next point. And Rod, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I'm putting myself in the shoes of somebody who is on the client side and is being impacted by one of these mega deals. I might not necessarily be a major telco or a major retail bank or a major insurer. I'm a company that's growing and I'm happy to work with a global provider. But now I find myself mixed up in this entire situation. What should be on my mind? What should I be thinking about?
Well, interesting you should say so, and delighted that this session is taking place, because even in the last week, I've had a couple of major international outsourcers reach out looking for just what's going on in South Africa. And what I'm seeing as a consequence of the mega deals is massive opportunities for the smaller, let's call it the sub 500 boutique, high touch, high care BPO operators. And I think a lot of the outsourcers will be looking for that high touch, high care. They'll be looking for agility, certainly technical and other forms, operational innovation. They'll be looking for management hands-on as opposed to sitting in a boardroom somewhere in New York or wherever it might be. I think it's going to give rise to far more intimate client relationships. And the big one for me, and I think it was mentioned in one of your podcasts with Mark Hillary a couple of weeks back, the opportunities for gain share through innovation and technical deployment. All of that moving, I think, towards, I would suspect going forward the next year or so, we're going to see a growth, significant growth in the I call it the sub 500s, high touch, high care boutique operators who can do the job. They've got the technologies to do it. They've got the resources to fund it. And the other piece of it, I think, is that the mega operators, in my opinion, have tended to move towards, I think you laughed when I used the term over-botterization. But over-automation, over-botterization is giving rise to the little boutique shops. We know one in Cape Town, don't we, Lian? That takes over the digital failures with high quality voice supported by tech. So I see a great opportunities for the smaller boutique operators going forward. And let the big dogs fight it out in the NASDAQs and beyond. I'm not particularly fazed by that.
So, and it's interesting because we recently published the 2023 Front Office CX Omnibus Survey. And when you dive into that data that was collected by Ryan Strategic Advisory from 712 enterprise decision makers in 9 different countries. Sorry, shameless plug for the publication, but you'll see where I'm going with this.
Shameless plug, Peter.
Well, I've been called shameless many times, but that's another story for another podcast. One of the things we're getting a sense of, Anne, is that organizations that are looking to outsource tend to be from the smaller to medium-sized firms that are growing quite rapidly. Many times they're in rapidly growing vertical markets, industries that didn't exist not necessarily a few years ago, but now we're seeing digital enterprise, we're seeing cybersecurity, cryptocurrency, green enterprises as examples. What advice would you give to a CX manager or a CX strategist from one of these firms that's looking at the market right now? And how do they navigate these very, very choppy waters when it comes to consolidation and it comes to a fair amount of disruption when it comes to third-party CX service management?
When you say the firm, are you saying advice to the mid-size startup firm or the larger strategist?
I'm saying the mid-size firms.
The mid-size. While these deals are while they might create some challenges for these mid-size providers, they really also open up some opportunities. So as these marketing and strategists are looking at it, they really need to be focusing on what Rod and Lian are saying. They need to be focusing on specific niches, specific verticals, offering highly specialized services or customized solutions. Lian nailed it when she said some of these clients that are part of these mega deals are used to being a big fish in a little pond. And now they are not. Now they are a little fish or a medium-sized fish in an ocean. And that has a big impact to how they are, not necessarily how they're taken care of, but how they feel, how they perceive they're being taken care of. And that perception is reality to clients. And so this is a huge opportunity to mid-market firms on how they can cater to the unique needs of those clients. And they should also leverage that agility, that flexibility, and that ability to really take care of and provide that dedicated or really one-on-one or at least more focused customer support to the actual individual that they are supporting, not necessarily the overall team, but that individual that they are, the vendor manager, whomever it is that they have that relationship with on the client side, making sure that they realize that they are the big fish. That is going to be incredibly important. And of course, staying ahead of the market trends.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Cool. This has been a great discussion, and I want to say thanks to everybody for taking part in it. We're just going to finish up with a last question I have for each one. Actually, no, this is the penultimate question, the second last question. From the standpoint, we've talked about the client and the impact on the client. We've talked a little bit about smaller to medium-sized outsourcers. I want to talk about the end user here. Does anybody have some thoughts, maybe starting with you, Lian, about how the end user, the individual that's being serviced by the outsourcer representing an enterprise, is going to be impacted by this trend?
So I think we've got to be really careful. I think Rod was 100% right before when he talked about overbotization. Was that the phrase you used?
Overbotterization.
Overbotterization. I'm stealing that. But it's absolutely true. If you have these giant deals and you are building solutions for large organizations and you are having to consolidate and you're doing business change inside your own organization, the temptation to throw automation in terms of cost out is significant. And there's so much talk at the moment about, bad bots, about when you don't think through your customer contact strategy with the customer in mind at the end. And you start thinking just about, how do we take cost out? How do we do, we map journeys, but we don't think about them properly. And I think what we could find if we're not careful is in the haste to take cost out and consolidate these large accounts, what you might get is that, customers will feel that they're going around endless chatbots that don't get to a human at the right point, that, they're going to go down rabbit holes of automation because systems aren't linked up and systems aren't connected, because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing in automation, right? The systems have to be connected, they have to be integrated at the back end. And if all of that isn't in place, then the end customer is going to find themselves in large amounts, potentially in a customer service loop that they can't get out of, that is driven by automation and cost out, as I said, not by the actual concern for the actual customer experience that they're getting at the end. That would be my concern.
Okay, cool. All right, so I am going to go to the last question now because I realize that we are running out of time, and I want to thank everybody again for making a hole in your schedules for this podcast. But starting with you, Anne, going then to Rod, then to Lian, a very simple question. We've seen 2 mega deals announced over the course of the past several weeks. Going into the second half of 2023, are we going to see more mega BPO CX deals coming down the pike? Anne?
I think that we might see another one. If not mega deal, what would qualify as like a almost mega deal? We're starting to see those largest companies that have already merged. So now we're kind of stepping down to the next level, right? The ones that would qualify as to just under mega. So either those are going to start merging or those are going to start getting gobbled up by the top tiers.
Thanks very much. Rod, your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with Anne on that one. And already we're starting to see and understand some of the mid-tier acquisition growth initiatives taking place already. So I definitely agree. We're going to see the next wave of, let's call them sub-mega. Dare I say, a lot of it will come out of India. And we're going to see a lot of acquisitions, I think, as well as mergers happening. It's already happening. We're seeing it.
Okay, Lian, you get the last word on this.
I can't disagree with what Anna and Rod have already said. I think we are going to see consolidation in that mid-sector. I hope we don't see any more big mega deals. I think we've had enough for now, or I personally think we've had enough for now. What I'd like to see, and what I am seeing in the marketplace, which is quite interesting, is some cooperative working between some of the SMEs, whereby they're not actually moving into a space of mergers and acquisitions, but they're actually saying, why don't 2 of us or 3 of us start working together in order to expand our geographical and our technological reach? And I think that's a really interesting one to watch, because I think that's a very healthy position.
It's interesting you say that, Lian, because I am seeing that as well. And I'm starting to see, kind of this isn't in our wheelhouse. You want to work together on this, pass these back and forth. Starting to see, let's play nice in the sandbox. Not sure how long this is going to last, but it's a good thing to see, and it's nice.
Don't you foresee that those sort of co-opetitions might lead to some mergers at that level, giving birth to kind of more mid-tier operators with consolidated skills and consolidated tech resources?
Yeah, exactly. Very true. Very true. Well, cool. Thanks to everybody for joining on this lovely Tuesday. I hope wherever you are, whether it's in Gauteng, Texas, or in Scotland, that you have a great rest of the day. We will be looking out for more activity in the consolidation and the M&A space in the coming weeks and months. But in the meantime, good luck to everybody, and we will speak soon.
Take care, everyone. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. We really appreciate your feedback and suggestions. You can reach myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan via LinkedIn. Please also leave a rating or review on your favourite podcast provider, as that helps more people to find us. As always, we'd like to thank Chris Haig at Traction Media for the CX Files graphics. See you next week.